Hey everybody, Arctic Ninja Paul Shirey, whatever you want to call me. I am here, and I want to talk about the Ann Sarnoff interview that was dropped today on Variety, because I know that that's kind of crushed some hopes and dreams today, and it's been a little bit of a depressing thing to hear, hot off the success over this past weekend, or the hype. So I wanted to address that. It's a bit too much for me to address on Twitter. It's just too many comments going zigzagging back and forth. And also Twitter's not really the best place to have a lengthy discussion about anything. It's too many people in the room shouting. So here we go. So first off, Ann Sarnoff basically shot down the continuation of Zack Snyder's Snyderverse and called the Zack Snyder's Justice League the completion of his trilogy. Kind of wrapped it up with a bow, and it's out without any mention of how it performed over the weekend. This is something that is continuous on all streaming platforms in that they don't report box office or numbers per se. There's nothing transparent about it. If they choose, such as the Falcon and the Winter Soldier being reported from Disney and Disney Plus as it being the most streamed show ever on the platform. That was sent out voluntarily through Disney Plus. If the show had not performed well, they didn't have to send out anything, or maybe it didn't really perform that well and they just put it out. How do we know? I mean, they just say, hey, we cracked records. We're awesome. Like, we just take them at their word, I guess. No mention of numbers from Ann Sarnoff in this interview. And I guess she was interviewed on Sunday. And I feel like this is a very strategically timed article that I think probably Sarnoff wanted to get a few things, quote unquote, straight with the fans in many ways. And the general feeling that I got from her interview was that you guys got what you wanted. Now sit down. It's hard to take it any other way, and that may not be the way she exactly meant it. And also, I want to be clear here. In no way do I support or do I condone anybody attacking any of these people. You should not be hashtagging Ann Sarnoff and, making threats and demands and all this stuff. This is just not the way to go. Sadly, in the last year and a half, what we've seen is this kind of behavior, and in many ways it being rewarded or at least shot up to the top of the charts on CNN, Fox News, and whatever network you watch. We've just seen people basically act like morons and do terrible things and just throw conniption fits. And I don't think that that is the right thing to do for a fan base. In the end, this is, fictional material, but I also understand these are kind of our modern gods in that way. These are our modern myths, and they're things that we love and that we cherish. And they can brighten our day in many ways. I've been reading comic books for, over 3 decades. I know what that means. I do. I get it. Trust me. Look at my walls. It's very obvious. Yelling, shouting, smashing windows, destroying things to get what you want. Anybody that's had kids and you've been to a Target and they start crying and screaming because they want something that you have no intention of buying, you don't buy it. Happened many times in my life. I pick my kid up, I throw him over my shoulder, and we leave the fucking store. End of story. Maybe later on, he behaves, does some chores, whatever the case, when the time is right and I feel like it's worth it, then I'll reward him. So I don't really see it that much different. And you may say, oh, are you calling us a bunch of kids? Well, some people do act like a bunch of kids. But I do believe that the majority of people are positive fans that really just want more of what they want. I am the same. Okay. So anyways, let's get back to Ann's, her interview here. So Ann says, that they wanted to greenlight Zack Snyder's Justice League so that he could complete his 4-hour vision. She didn't really give much insight as to why, though, why they did it, which, my guess is for streaming numbers and because the hashtag's been out there, and in many ways, maybe just to shut people up. Maybe it's the cheapest way to shut them up. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to go the way that they think or hope it's going to go. The other one thing she does mention, I think is a little strange, is how she's like, we wanted to release his 4-hour vision, which is impossible to do in theaters. I don't buy that. I don't buy that. I think at this point in time, I think that people have adapted and are ready for longer form entertainment. And it's nothing new. Go back and look at Gone with the Wind, Titanic, all these movies, Avengers Endgame. These are 3 hours or more, 4 hours. These are long movies. And we're now at a point in our lives and a point in time and technology where binging or watching something for an extended period of time is the norm. So the whole thing about, oh, you can't release it in theaters. Well, maybe. I mean, I saw Avengers Endgame a couple times in theaters, and that's 3 hours long. So I don't know if I particularly buy that that particular train of thought. So Sarnoff really just kind of trumpeted that she's got, they have so many different series, different shows for HBO Max from all different creators that are basically trying to broaden the talent pool and basically make something that's sounds like ultimately what they're trying to do is tie everything into each other. I feel like it's kind of a big step backwards from the multiverse way of doing things, in that you're kind of making yourself in many ways beholden to what came before and what comes after. And that's kind of what got WB into hot water before. Not really having faith in a solid plan. So I don't know. Maybe there's more to it. Probably is. I'm not privy to those meetings. They're probably very long meetings that I wouldn't want to be privy to. Anyways, it does sound like that is the direction that they're going, and that they're trying to tie in all the different things together, very much in the way that Disney Plus is doing with their Marvel franchises and Star Wars franchises, which is to kind of cross-pollinate between the two. Ann says also, so they asked, the Snyder Cut came about because of a fan campaign online. Do you feel like that you need to strike a balance between being responsive to fans and charting your own course as a company? And how responsive do you believe DC should be? Ann says, we're always going to listen to our fans, but we are in service of the broadest fan base, and we owe them an integrated, holistic strategy, whatever that means. We are the shepherds of the franchise, and hopefully when the fans see what we've got in store, they'll know that DC is in good hands across many different platforms with many different creators. We want different voices in the mix. For certain fans that want singular voices, they may be disappointed. But we would ask them to be patient and see what we've got in store, because perhaps the newer voices in the mix will have just as compelling stories to tell. On balance, you of course want to listen to your fans, but we do want to stay true to our vision and our mission for DC and build that out. So to me, I think this statement reads very much like, y'all need to get over Snyder and welcome all these new voices. I don't have a problem with new voices. I mean, there's new voices and new talent emerge all the time, and it's often great to see. What bothers me is that the last two DC movies were, in my opinion, atrocious, with the very last one, Wonder Woman 84, being the worst of the bunch. It is irredeemable in my mind. I have no desire to ever watch it again. But in truth, I've spoken to people that have said the same thing about Zack Snyder's Justice League. They've said it was too long, too dark, the usual comments, which is fine. That's their opinion, and said that they would never watch it again. I've watched it 5 times, so there's that. In terms of the toxic fandom, and that's something I'm going to talk about a little bit more here too. She was asked, there's also been a toxic side to the fandom, with reports that critics and some of your executives have received threats for not endorsing the Snyder Cut or being perceived as standing in the way of its release. What's your reaction to that behavior? Of course, she goes on to say, we're not tolerating any of that. It's reprehensible, et cetera, et cetera. And it is, there's no getting around that. All the kind of standard stuff that comes with. And ultimately, I think, the negative side of fan base, you simply can't escape it, right? Like, especially, let's just use Twitter. You can't escape it on Twitter. I mean, I see like half the people I interact with on Twitter, it's a fake avatar. Who knows if it's their real name? Who knows who these people are? And, you get this kind of drunken freedom to just kind of spew and spat whatever you want without much thought or regard for what it actually means. And I've seen plenty of it today already, of people just saying, nah, screw you and your kumbaya message. We're going to break glasses, essentially. Not in those exact words, but this kind of, oh no, we're going to continue. I just see so many people doubling down on the toxic side. It's just like they just can't help themselves, and they continue to get in their own way as far as that goes. In fact, that brings me to a quote which makes me think about Warner Brothers from another journalist after we saw 2017's Justice League for the first time in London. I remember him telling one of the reps, he's like, WB just can't get out of their own way. And in many ways, I feel like that's kind of what this is too. But it sounds like they have a plan. I don't know what that plan is. I don't have a full understanding of what that concept is, other than, it feels in many ways like they're trying to just talk back the Snyder people and say, hey, you got what you wanted. Those days are over. Now let's look at what's coming in now. What's the next thing? Which leads to what she said when, the campaign has now moved to restore the Snyderverse, and what her reaction is. And I'll read it exactly as what she says. She says, I appreciate that they love Zack's work, and we are very thankful for his many contributions to DC. It almost sounds like you're being fired. We appreciate everything you've done, but you're out of here. We're just so happy that he could bring his cut of the Justice League to life, because that wasn't in the plan until about a year ago. Remember that. With that comes the completion of his trilogy. Done. Get out. We're very happy we've done this, but we're very excited about the plans we have for all the multi-dimensional DC characters that are being developed right now. I don't know. I think there's many ways that you can read into that. Ann Sarnoff right now is just like, oh my God. All these nerds on YouTube making videos trying to pick apart my comments. Well, what did you expect? I think there's a couple different ways that you can read into that. I think that, she is trying to say like, hey, was the plan, as we were just going to close this up. Of course, Zack being Zack, he's like, I'm going to leave it open-ended, and I kind of have to. He has said before, the ask was for his vision. He was not asked to, hey, can you wrap this up, please, and just get everybody to be quiet. That's not what he made. That's not what he did. He made what he intended to make. And there's a broader story, which you can read. You can actually read, kind of what his whole ideas were all the way up to the very end. So it's kind of, in many ways, it's kind of weird that that's out there, but it is. There it is. You could spoil the whole thing for yourself, essentially, if you wanted to, right down to the last punch. But she does mention multi-dimensional DC characters. So what does that mean? Well, I think that the multiverse, which is meant, which has already been teased, right? Like in the Flash TV show, and multiverse is actually said in Zack Snyder's Justice League. So multiverse is something that's been around for a long time in DC Comics and in Marvel, for that matter, this interdimensional kind of existence of characters. And personally, I see no reason why that wouldn't work wonderfully. I feel like that is the absolute way to go. That is the absolute way to take this journey and to free creators up from having to be beholden to movies before and after. So I don't know that this necessarily says it's cooked, it's done, it's not happening as far as that goes. And another thing that I'll talk about with Hollywood is fluid. Never say never. Again, I didn't think we'd see the Snyder Cut. Zack Snyder didn't think he'd see the Snyder Cut ever finished, completed in any scope past the next 2 decades. It would just be an afterthought. We didn't think any of that would happen. Okay. If one thing I've learned in the last year and a half is that anything can happen. Anything can happen. So I know a lot of you out there right now are kind of like losing hope, and you're like, oh, I had this great weekend and I was filled with hope, and I was, filled with excitement watching this movie and finally seeing it. I saw your post. I was excited for you. I was excited for everybody. I got to see the movie a few days early, and I was like, God, I wish I could just invite everybody over and watch this with them. But I was happy to see it. And it is great. It is a great fan moment, which is why I don't quite understand why they would sully that moment right now. I feel like really this is just kind of a bad PR move by Warner Brothers to put this out today. I think today's a bad day for it. Like, the body's not even cold, and they're like, all right, move on. Let people celebrate for a while. Let them enjoy it before you quash everything. I don't think that was the best response at all. The other thing that Ann Sarnoff kind of, quashed very quickly was when she was asked outright, is there a plan to develop David Ayer's Suicide Squad? She says, we won't be developing David Ayer's cut. I saw, David Ayer hit up on Twitter. He was like, but why? With like a little sad face. And I agree. Like, for one thing, Ayer's cut is done. You don't need to do reshoots. You don't have to I don't think you have to rescore. I think they have score for it, everything. I mean, it's to probably take very little to release that. And why not just have an alternate version? I mean, what is there to lose in putting that out to HBO Max? Like, if you're trying to please all these different fans, well, let me get to that. Let's get to that. So another thing that Ann Sarnoff talked about was viewers seeing their org charts as far as when it came to DC. And she talked about how they saw that, characters in movies had nothing to do with characters in the TV shows, and wants to create a more unified vision. And she cites the Peacemaker series with John Cena from James Gunn branching out of the Suicide Squad. And she says we're going to be seeing a lot more of that going forward. Again, I feel like this is kind of a piggyback on the the Disney Plus model in terms of the movies and the shows kind of interacting with one another and piggybacking. She also says they want fans to spot Easter eggs at the end of the movie that relate to a movie or show that's coming up, and that they can harken back to something like the Flash movie with cameo appearances and things like that. Again, standard stuff that's already been done for quite a while, including in the DC movies. So it's not really anything new. So I don't know. Maybe she just wants to reiterate that. She also reiterated that, spoke about the Ray Fisher investigation a little bit. Not much to be said there. They did ask who is the connective tissue, or who is the one that's kind of calling the shots over at DC. I think this is an important point, and maybe someone that you can direct your positive affirmations and asks. And that is Jim Lee, the artist extraordinaire, whom I love. His art is amazing. He's been an inspiration for years. But he is the one that they are directing to in terms of DC Comics. She's saying Jim lives and breathes the canon of DC, and he works with all the divisions to make sure the storylines are true to the canon. He helps them come up with ideas for new storylines. Jim is very much in the middle of everything. But she does say, but there's not one person calling the shots, because I want all the voices in the room to offer their expertise and knowledge of their formats. You guys ever heard that term, too many cooks in the kitchen? There you have it. Sarnoff, goes on to explain, her push for more diverse characters, diverse talent, which, we know that Ta-Nehisi Coates is doing Superman, or new take on Superman. And that, you have things like Blue Beetle that's supposed to star a Latino character, announces Zatanna today. Some of these, like Zatanna and Blue Beetle, I mean, I'm not particularly excited just in terms of character. They're not exactly my favorites. I know that some people love them, and that's cool. And there you have it, I guess. In that sense, Sarnoff has, at least she has that right. I mean, there are multiple audiences to serve here. And I fully agree with that, to be honest with you. I think that there should be fan service to all audiences, to kids, to teens, to different diverse groups. That's totally fine. And who could argue with that, really? But I think one of the audiences out of that mix are those that want more of the Snyderverse. And, for me, and I think for you too, the best way to approach this is as a consumer. You don't have to be demanding. You don't have to be an asshole. All right. You don't have to be a demanding prick. You don't have to, basically call people out in a negative way. But I think that you can express yourself. Obviously, people are going to do it anyways. But I think that you can do it in a more positive manner. And I think by showing strength and unity, kind of the messages that you would get from Zack Snyder's Justice League is something that would move the needle. I think that being jerks and bullying, harassing, name calling, blocking, and just all that hateful shit is not going to do anything for the movement. It's not going to restore the Snyderverse. And I know there's some people that are just stuck in their ways. I've seen it already today. They're like, yeah, fuck you. You want to hold hands around a campfire and sing Kumbaya. No, but I mean, do we have marshmallows? Because maybe. What I want is a positive movement. What I want to see is a positive movement. Fans and fan bases have changed so much since I was a kid. I didn't have any of this stuff when I was a kid, all right? Like we had 89 Batman and we had the Reeve Superman movies, and then along came Blade, and then we started to get somewhere in the X-Men movies, which I don't particularly love, especially not the early ones. But I think we live in a society now where the entertainment is just so abundant, and I feel like, as fans, we have to kind of take it upon ourselves to channel that energy in a more positive way, because there's so much to choose from. And I feel like in many ways we are beyond spoiled. We're a bunch of spoiled fucking brats, but we don't have to act that way. Okay. I feel like we can act in a more positive, meaningful way and show our support for the things that we want. And without being just jerks about it. I think that we can do it. I think utilizing the hashtag restore the Snyderverse. I'm going to continue to use release the Ayer cut. I want to see Ayer's cut. As a consumer, as somebody that buys DC products, I buy DC comics. And I'm looking at you, Batman, raising your price point per month on those books. I'm a consumer, lifelong consumer. And as a consumer, that's what I would like to see more of. Okay. And I will let that be known, and you should let that be known too, but you don't have to do it in a nasty way. Most of you don't though, so the positive people keep being positive. The negative ones, I think those guys, look, you have every right to say what you want, but I'm not going to amplify your voice. I'm not going to amplify negativity. And I wouldn't want that if I was in charge of DC or Warner Brothers myself. So I'm going to listen to people that, are doing the right thing. I think also kind of the fundraising aspect that people have done through these different organizations, I think that has really helped shine a light on the positive movement of fan bases. And maybe that's something that continues. Maybe that's something that helps continue to get things like the Snyderverse restored. But, and here's another aspect that I want to discuss really quick, is I want everybody to think about what a sequel to Zack Snyder's Justice League means. You really need to look at this in a broader perspective, okay? You have multiple contracts with some A-list talent that's all going to have to come back together. It's not that simple. Now, you look at Wonder Woman 84, okay? It's awful, okay? It's a terrible movie. Respect to those that like it. That's cool. For me, I just feel like it's bad, okay? It debuted, and then by Monday morning, with all the terrible reviews, and who knows how it performed. I mean, it probably performed pretty well in terms of streaming, because what the fuck? We didn't have anything else to watch. But it was not good. And they greenlit Wonder Woman 3 with Gal and with Patty Jenkins within 3 days, right? However, and you may say, well, why did they just do that for Snyder Cut? Why did that not happen? Well, I just think it's far more complex. For one thing, Snyder is not under any kind of contract with Warner Brothers at this point. And he's kind of been off doing his own thing and is seemingly continuing down that path. Although, he has not written off that whether or not he would do more. It's just said, well, it's basically up to Warner Brothers. We'll just have to wait and see. And this is a bit of a social experiment in that way. But the bigger picture of this is getting all the talent back. There's a lot of contracts, a lot of negotiations, a lot of work that's going to have to be done in order to make that happen, to get Cavill and Gal and Ben, Ezra and Ray Fisher back as Cyborg. I don't know how that happens with kind of the bad blood that's out there now. There's just a lot of stuff that has to come together in order for this to happen. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but I think that people aren't really seeing the big picture of what it means to just greenlight a sequel like that within a weekend. That's a bigger ask. That's a much bigger ask. So I don't know. We'll see. Again, we will see what happens. But I will say this: don't give up the fight. Fight positively. Continue to continue to push that positive messages and show your support. For Restore the Snyderverse, and I think release the Ayer cut. Continue to show that. Use those hashtags and put the word out there, and champion what you love. That is what you should do: is champion what you love, without taking down what somebody else loves or doesn't. If somebody doesn't like Zack Snyder's Justice League, That's fine. I talked to a really good friend of mine this weekend, and he sent me like this long text. He watched it, and he didn't like it. He didn't care for it. He had his own sound reasons for not liking it, and I was like, I get it. Snyder he's not for everybody. I understand that. Some people just don't like it. I've seen more people that do like it, but that's his opinion. That's his take, and he's perfectly entitled to that. And I'm not going to simply be like, well, you're a stupid idiot. You're not my friend anymore. Don't ever text me again. No, nothing like that's going to happen, because I'm a human being. I'm a normal person, and I will just move on with my life, and that'll be that. So I think, again, stay positive. Continue with the fundraising efforts. I think are very helpful. And just kind of championing these things that you love and letting, Warner Brothers, letting them know, hey, I love this stuff. I'm a consumer. I buy your products. I want more of this. It's that simple. Just put it out there and just don't stop. And I'll leave you with this little story, my comparison, my parable, if you will, for this. I was thinking about how, if you've ever seen The Shawshank Redemption. So if you remember in The Shawshank Redemption, Andy Dufresne, as played by Tim Robbins, wrongfully convicted and serving, I believe, a life sentence, is in prison, and he wants to start a library. So he starts writing letters. He writes, I'm going to write a letter a week to get money, to get funding, and to get books for a library, to build up the library. And he does it writes one letter a week for I think it's 3 years. And then finally one day he comes in and there's all these books and there's a check for $300 or something. And, they're all like, oh, hey, you did it. You did it, Andy. It only took 3 years. And they're like, in the letter, they said, we will consider this matter closed and, continue on with your life. Please stop writing your letters. And does Andy Dufresne stop writing letters? No. He says, well, I guess I'll have to write 2 letters a week now. So that is my lesson for today for how you can approach this. Just continue to amplify your voice, but amplify the positive. I know you're sick of me saying positive, but that is what I believe needs to happen. And just kind of root out the bad apples. Bad apples are always going to show up in every fan base. And we'll just wait and see. Remember this. Remember that Hollywood is a very fluid place. Things change and turn on a dime. Guys, we have Zack Snyder's Justice League. You can watch it right stinking now on HBO Max. And soon you'll be able to get it on a 4K disc. That is fucking amazing, okay? We have that. As fans, collectively, we have that. That is an amazing, amazing thing. So, be grateful and thankful that you have that, because I mean, most of us never thought we would. I mean, it is kind of a miraculous thing. So enjoy that we have that, and then continue to just push for the things that you want and show that you want those things. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I'm gonna abandon ship now, HBO Max. You didn't give me 2 more movies. Again, I think that's the wrong answer. You're not showing any incentive for them to continue. They're like, look at them. They'll sign up and then they just say, oh, fuck off. You're not giving us 12 more movies of what we want. So bye. How does that incentivize HBO Max or Warner Brothers to be like, yeah, maybe we should listen to the fans? I don't know. I love HBO. I've always loved HBO. Great programming, great films, and I'm looking forward to the original stuff they have. And I'm looking forward to many of the DC films that are coming up. Some I'm not. Could really give a shit about. But the Batman looks great. I think the Suicide Squad is going to be cool. I was on the set for that, and I look forward to talking more about that when I can. I feel like that is going to be something special and something cool. So I think there's good stuff in the pipe. Black Adam sounds really cool too. There's certain things out there that I think, oh man, and Flashpoint. I mean, come on. And after Ezra Miller's epic scene and Zack Snyder's Justice League, I'm all in for Flash. So more of that, please. And I definitely want to restore the Snyderverse and release the Ayer cut. Let's keep an eye on things. We'll keep watching it. And I'll be, of course, checking back in here and chiming in with my 2 cents as we go. Also, make sure that you guys subscribe. And also, I'm going to include a link at the bottom where you can get my Directed by Zack Snyder t-shirt. You can order one. And I've got some more shirts and merch coming up that you can get for yourself. I think a Restore the Snyderverse shirt may be in the cards, and perhaps a Release the Ayer cut shirt. Sales have been doing good so far, so people are responding to them, and that's great. I'm making them because nobody else is making them. And I just think it's awesome to be able to have, kind of more deep cut, cool merch and shirts and things that you can express yourself with. So that's what it's there for. Take a look. If it interests you, pick one up for yourself. They are limited supply, so grab one if you want. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell for when I do live streams and things like that. And I will see you guys on the next one. Restore the Snyderverse.